What's up guys, Shane at Fugatech 3D Printing, and today I'm going to show you how to silence your CR10. So welcome back guys. As I said, today we're going to go ahead and try to silence the CR10. It's a great printer, a lot of people use it. It's become highly recommended by a lot of people. I've yet to do my final review on the unit because I would like to get at least 3,000 to 5,000 hours of printing on it. I'm probably around 2,000 hours now. And I just need to get more prints on it just so I can kind of confirm, is this as good as everyone says it is? But in the meantime, I really need to make this thing more quiet because it is just crazy loud. As you can see, I have like what, 8 printers right here, right now around my area, and I have to have every single one of them off while I'm recording, and that really hurts my productivity time. The FT5, ever since I've made its changes, it is much more quieter, and I made those changes using stepper dampers. These are designed for a NEMA 17 stepper motor, and these are just meant to add a rubber, basically grommet, between the actual motor and the actual case, because when the motor vibrates, it vibrates whatever it's mounted to, which vibrates the entire extrusion or case, whatever happens your printer is made of, which then goes into the table or the bench, whatever it is that you have it mounted onto, and the noise just goes more and more the further the reverberations go through. It's just even worse. So we're going to use some stepper dampers on the X and the Y. Z does not matter because it barely ever moves, and if it ever moves, it's one little tick at a time. But the X and Y are always moving. They're always moving fast. So we need to quiet those down. And another real big offender of sound in the CR10 is going to be this control box. There are 3 fans inside of here. There is one towards the back, which exhausts all of the air out. There is one in the middle which acts as a recirculation fan, and then there's one in the power supply, which is by far the worst, because when that thing kicks on, it is like a tornado went up. And kind of to show a before and after, let's go ahead and see what the printer sounds like when it's off, when it's just sitting there idly, when motors are moving, when the control box is on, and then when the control box kicks up into high gear. Okay, so it's kind of all over the place, but it goes all the way down to about 35 when I don't talk. So this is with the printer off. There's not much going on. All the way down to like 26. Let's turn the printer on and see how it sounds with it just on. So we're sitting about 53 to 60. It goes up and down. This is without the power supply fan actually kicking on and without any of the motors moving. So now let's move some motors and see how it goes from there. So that doesn't add too much noise. It seems like most of the noise is coming from here. Now I'm going to see if I can get the fan on the power supply to actually kick on. So we're going to go ahead, prepare, preheat PLA, and see if we can get that to turn on. So the motors and that fan going up, we're seeing over about 76 decibels. Which is pretty doggone loud. And you can hear on the camera, it's probably pretty loud. Alright, now we've seen all that, let's go over what fans we're going to need to put inside of here. Now I actually have these from a previous server build. These are Noctua NF A4x10. So these are 40mm by 10mm Noctua fans. They move a lot of air and they're super duper quiet about it. And because they're computer fans, don't worry, you just don't need to use the yellow pin. They are still controlled via voltage, so if it's only putting in 7 volts, it runs that much lower. That's how 3D printers work with their fans. You don't need a signal cable like some other people think you do. You don't need that. So we're going to go ahead and use one of these on the extruder, and that will greatly reduce a lot of sound coming from there. Once we go inside the box, I have this 60mm by 15mm fan, and this is going to be for the power supply. These are super hard to come by, and there's no great big brand. There's no Noctua or Noise Blocker or NZXT. There's nothing like that that makes a 60mm fan. These are hard to find. They're not terribly expensive. I got 2 for a few dollars, and that's what I end up using. I'm actually going to use one on another printer as well in order to quiet that one down. So we're going to use this and hope that this does a good change. I don't know. We're going to find out after when I get to the end of this video. Next, I have a Noise Blocker SX-I or 1. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but this is a 50 by 50 by 10mm fan. This is the same size as the recirculation fan that is in there. You could get away with a thicker fan if you wanted to, but I figured a 10mm would be just fine as long as it's quieter than the stock one. no biggie. And surprisingly, in this giant box, this is a Noctua 40mm by 20mm fan, and this is going to be for the exterior, so it's going to be for the outbound of this case. It's going to be the exhaust. It's going to move a lot of air and be super duper quiet. The current one moves a lot of air, don't get me wrong, it moves a lot of air and it cools well. But I'm hoping this cools just as well, a lot quieter. If it cools better, hey, all the better. But again, I'm just hoping to get a noise reduction out of the entire system. That's why we're doing all these changes. Now that we've went over all the parts, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take care of the control box and swap out all the fans inside of here. Okay, first things first, we've unplugged our power, turn it back on, turn it back off, make sure it's off, and we're going to disconnect some of these cables just so it makes life a little bit easier for us when moving this around. And I'm going to take off my feet, which just sit on there. And that's just kind of pull it up. And we're going to take a look here at the bottom. So first thing we need to do is we need to remove these 5 hex head. You can use the stock, or you can use the Allen heads that come with the printer, but I find Allen heads really hard to use. I really don't like hex wrenches. So I have a nice little cheap screwdriver here that has all the parts in it that I need, and I'm going to use that to whip these off real quick. Okay, sorry for the change. My other camera died, so I'm switching to the GoPro. Okay, so once we have the bottom panel off, we then can see our power supply. So this fan eventually is going to come out, but in order to do that, we got to take out these 4 screws right here, and that just requires a little bit of a bigger head to get those out. Again, these Allen wrenches are included with your kit, so it makes this super easy to pull out. Those are out, so now we're just going to slide the power supply out, which got to get a little bit fancy with to get it out. And we're just going to set it off here to the side so that it's out of our way. So someone did say in another forum, while we're in here, I'm going to just go ahead and tighten up these terminal blocks here. Someone did have some loose ones and they did burn up. Mine have not. Everything's been great so far, but I'm going to just tighten things up just to be safe before I close this up. Okay, so now that we're in here, I really hope there's enough light in here for you guys to see. So here is one of our fans. So this is our 50mm, and then back tucked under here is our 40mm fan. So we're going to go ahead and pull out the 50mm first and replace that one. Alright, so we need to snip this cable tie so that we can get a little bit more space with this, and we're eventually just going to strip these off and we will just splice in our other fan to make life easy. Make sure power's off before you cut these. Okay, so you're going to also notice here that there are 4 screws that hold this on, so you're going to pull those 4 off. And also notice the airflow. So wherever the back of the fan is, this is your airflow. Some fans, this one does not, will have little arrows on it, but wherever this back panel is facing and the arms are there where the power goes to, air is blowing this way. So that way. This is air is coming in into here. It's blowing it out. So keep note of that. Now let's swap it out. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull back my wire here a ways, the sleeving, and then we're just going to go ahead and cut this off. Okay, so we have red, black, and white. White is going to be our control wire, which we do not need. So that one you can just separate, whoops, and or you can pull it off just like that. I was not meaning to do it that hard, but you can do that and it'll come right off. Now we just need to strip the wires we have and do a little bit of soldering. But for future me, I would like to make life a little bit easier. So I went ahead and bought some of these pre-made Dupont connectors. I have a Dupont kit, but I kind of figured these leads would be a little bit easier to use, and I wanted to give them a try before I use them for other projects. And of course, this piece of tape won't come off. Okay, so it's like 10 male and 10 females, so we're gonna need one of each. And they're already pre-stripped, but we're actually gonna end up cutting these down quite a bit because I don't really need that much cable in here. And then they just go together and they're keyed, so they only go in one way, and life is easy. So I'm gonna put the female end to the board and the male end on the actual fan. So if you've never done soldering before, it's not all that scary. You're just gonna need a little soldering station. I just have a Weller variable here that I bought on Amazon quite a while ago. It's a great little kit. We're gonna need the Dupont connectors, and you're gonna need some shrink wrap. There's another little kit, you know, bunch that I bought on Amazon a while ago, and it has served its purpose many times over because I've needed it so many times. And we're gonna need a couple out. I'm gonna stay with red and black for each of the colors, just because I'm a little OCD about that stuff, but it doesn't need to be if you don't want it to be. And we're gonna need a bunch of this for all of our different fans, so just set that to the side until you're ready for the rest of it. Now for soldering fans like this, we're gonna be soldering the leads overlapping like so. So they're just gonna overlap like this, and we'll solder them together like that. I don't like soldering like that. I think that's wrong. I'm not an electrician though, but that's how I was taught to do it. My dad is an electrician. So you can use several things, but you can't obviously hold that. So you're gonna need something like this, some helping hands. And these are, again, relatively cheap on Amazon or Banggood, wherever you shop from. They're pretty cheap, so you can have one of those. Or if you don't have that, and you don't have the money, but you got a little bit of filament laying around, you can make this. And it's a variable size for different wires, and this is just a very cheap helping hands. So all you have to do is set it down. We're gonna go ahead and do red first. We're gonna put the red one through there, just push it in a little bit, and it gets stuck in there. And we're gonna do red on the fan, and we're gonna push that in there. And there they overlap perfectly, just how we need them to be. But before we do that, you need to put your heat shrink on one side and get it down out of the way. And then put this back on here, and then we are good to go. So we'll be able to just solder those together like that. We're gonna need to pre-tip those first, to tin them first, which is simple enough, but this is a very easy and cheap way to add to whatever your tools are. Oh, and lastly, a roll of solder. Bought this, 20 years ago when I was a kid. My dad started teaching me how to solder. I've barely used any of it. Solder is good forever. And so I would just say buy a roll, and you'll never need another roll, to be honest, unless like electronics is what you do for a living. But if you just need it in your little maker space, this is more than enough. There we go. Now it is nice and flat. Now we can pull it off. Our shrink tube will go over it, and then use a heat gun or a lighter to go ahead and shrink that down. And then now you have a protected solder, which is very good, because if you leave that exposed, bad things will happen. Shouldn't have to explain that to people, but I do. So the next one, and we'll continue on. I prefer to use a heat gun, but mine's in the other room. I don't feel like going to grab it right now. So a little bit of heat, and there you go. You now have a new lead on there. Okay, so we got everything tipped up. All we need to do now is reinstall it. So we're going to connect it to the connector. Nice and easy there. And then all we got to do is put these screws back in. There we go. That one's done. So now we're going to go ahead and move to the back one. And that one's going to be a little bit hard. Probably not be able to record that one, but we're going to try to dive in there. And as you can see, it is right back in there. And we're going to go ahead and dive in there, pull that out, do the exact same thing as this, but we need to cut some zip ties in here to get those out. And shouldn't be too bad, but I'll get that out now. Okay, so we have it finally installed in here. It spins just like the way it should. I'm just tucking the cables down in here for now. You can re-zip tie them to these mounts here and here, but I don't want to do that right now. I have other plans for this printer. So for now that's done. Now we're going to go ahead and look at the power supply. All right, so word of warning, this here is the warranty void sticker. We are going to break that. So you've been warned that when you do this, you totally void the warranty of the power supply and probably the printer. So, you know, now you know. And we're gonna go ahead and take this apart. All right, and there it is. That's now off. This is the fan we're gonna be replacing right here. So we can easily just take this off here. These are just regular old fan screws that you'd use in like a PC case. Okay, and it's just in there with a 2-pin connector. Pop it off like that. So for our fans, they thankfully come with the exact same connector. So it is as simple as a 1, 2, 3, chop, swap it out. There it is. So we're going to reattach it. And again, we want this blowing out. And we're just going to put these screws right back in. Sometimes these are a little hard to get them back into a new fan because they actually bite into the plastic. So they are a little bit harder to put in. than regular like M3s. Bam, there you go. So there's our new fan, all done. I should put the wire in there out of the way and close it all back up. All right, so the last thing to do is reattach the power supply, frame here. Reattach the power supply with these 4 screws, and then we're gonna put the cover back on, and then this part is done. All right, now for the stepper dampers, I have to look at them first. As you can see, 2 of them, 2 holes are larger, so they're pass-through, and 2 of these are actually threaded. So that tells you which way you're actually gonna put this on. Okay, so the pass-through ones are actually gonna go right onto your extruder side, and your threaded ones are what these bars here are going to thread into. Now see how it's 4 parts, first 4 bolts holding it down right now. We're gonna go down to 2 and 2. It'll still be okay. It adds a little bit of extra force here to the shaft, but it shouldn't matter all that much. Now, in order to get this off, first thing first, obviously, power off the printer. We're actually going to take an M3 and we're going to unscrew these 4 bolts right here. And just be careful not to lose anything, because we do need all of these, well, most of them, I guess. So we're just going to pull that out of the way. There's those. We can unloop that. Okay, and now these are generally tight. Yep, they're all tight. So I'm just going to use a small crescent wrench to go ahead and loosen those up. And once they get a little twist, then they easily come off. And I'm just going to pull it out. And there it is. So now we're going to kind of move this back here a little bit. Okay, so our motor is going in like this. And here we have our stepper damper, which fits just perfectly onto there. I'm going to put it on this way just because I feel like that will help with the forces of the extruder or the belt pulling on it. So all we're going to need is 2 little M3 6mm ones in order to reattach that. So that is additional hardware that you will need. Okay, so now that those are on, we're going to need a fine Allen to loosen up this. Oh, actually not that fine. Probably should have did this before I put the collar on, but I can get it. We just need to make this a little bit loose here. Okay, now that that's loose, we can go ahead and reinstall it back onto here. And all we're going to do is push this through like so, and then like so there. And we're going to use 2 of these extensions to reattach it. And then I'm going to use the crescent wrench to just torque them down just a little bit. I want to make sure that's nice and tight. Don't want this loosening up at all. And now we're going to line up our motor here, our pulley. And you want to line it up so that this is straight as possible, which you should be able to do with too much issue. So right about there is straight for me. And then now all I got to do is tighten down these 2 grub screws, and we're back in business. And the absolute final step on this is to reattach the acrylic piece, which has our end stop. So I'm going to loop that back on there. And then we only need 2 of these stock screws that we were using to tighten this back on. Now arguably, I'm using socket cap heads, as you can see right here, so they're pretty high up. If you were to use these button heads that like come with the printer, it's just not what I had in hand, you probably could use these again to put through here like so, and then use a nut, an M3 nut on the other side to re-secure these down. theoretically, I don't really think you need to. It literally only holds the end stop. Like, it doesn't need to be anything super fancy. It just needs to actually hold it on there. So I think that's pretty good. So these are going to be the exact same steps we take to do the Y motor, but I don't need to film that because you just saw me do this one, and that's easy enough. Okay, so it's all done. We're going to take a test reading first, and then I'll turn this on and we'll see how it sounds. So like 30, 32 in the room. So 46 with everything on. Now let's home everything. So 51 with the X or the Y moving, which is not too bad at all. And then now we're going to go ahead and heat this sucker up. See if we can't get that big fan to kick in. So there you have it, guys. So now when we talk about the fans, it did seem to quiet it down on the ambient levels, which is good. When it's moving, so thanks to the stepper dampers now, it is a little bit quieter as well. Printing, it will be a little bit quieter. Another thing you have to try out is different feet in order to totally eliminate the sound resonating through the printer into the actual tabletop, whatever it is you have yours to. The FT5 uses these type of foam mounts, foam balls that mount to the bottom of it, and that really reduces the sound. I might try the same thing on this eventually, but we'll see how it is. And then, so like the fans inside move a lot more air than the stock ones do. I can definitely feel the difference there. And they do sound quieter. So was this upgrade worth it? I leave that to you guys to find out. So if you guys want to purchase any of the items that I used here, I'll put links to everything down below in the video description. If you want to purchase any, please go ahead and use those links. A little slice of what you buy comes back to me, as they are affiliate links. And now we're going to wrap it up. So thank you guys for watching. If you found this video helpful in any way, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. Tell me what I can do better in the future. If you want to help support the channel, best thing to do is subscribe, hit the bell icon. That way you get a notification anytime I upload new content, especially for videos like this. If you want to support me financially, there's a Patreon link down below. Donate me $1 more, I greatly appreciate current Patrons. You guys are awesome, as always. Anything that comes to me via Patreon, I try to purchase filament either to use on the channel for projects or to use just to review a random filament, which I've done in the past. If you want to support me without spending your money, down below is going to be a bunch of affiliate links. Go ahead and update your bookmarks with those. Again, the items that I used today are down there again as affiliate links. Anything you buy, a little slice comes back to me. I appreciate it. And I thank you guys for watching each and every day, or each and every time I put up a video. So thank you guys. Until next time, happy printing.